Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the June 13th summer edition of the Board of Education meeting for the Poudre School District. Thank you all for being here. We're surprised so many people decided to come back to join us this summer, but we're really happy you did. We have an exciting meeting tonight for those of you who wish to stay for the whole thing, but if you don't, we will understand that maybe you want to get back to enjoying your summer. So, with that, that is our call to order, and if you would all please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Very nice. Okay, that brings us to 3.0, approval of the agenda. Do any board members have anything they'd like to change on the agenda for this evening? Okay, I think we're good. And that brings us to recognitions. Dr. Smizer.
Our recognitions tonight feature outstanding employees, athletes, staff, and community members. Danielle Clark is our Executive Director of Communications, and she is here to introduce the honorees.
Thank you, Dr. Smizer, members of the community. This evening we're going to start with our outstanding scholars students. So, Ms. Reed, if you'd join me. And this evening we have 4 different types of scholars that we're going to be recognizing. The first is the Boettcher Scholarship, and that's sponsored by the Denver-based Boettcher Foundation, which is a merit-based scholarship available to Colorado's graduating seniors who provide service to their community and school and are in the top 5% of their class. And they receive top scores on college entrance exams, display leadership, and demonstrate character. There are only 40 scholarships offered in all of Colorado, and this year from Poudre High School we have Naitra Ramchander, and it's my understanding that Naitra is not here this evening, but let's go ahead and give her a round of applause because it's an exemplary achievement. So next we have the Daniels Fund Scholars. So really quickly, the Daniels Scholarship is awarded to PSD seniors who have demonstrated a strong character and a determination to succeed in life. They receive funding to attend the college or university of their choice, and the Daniels Scholarship is a supplemental scholarship to all other financial resources. After financial aid resources have been applied, the scholarship covers the remaining expenses, and students also receive a laptop computer and a printer. We have 3 Daniels Fund Scholars. 2 were unable to be with us, so we'll start with them. We have Taylor Hansen from Poudre High School and Christy Perry from Poudre High School, who are unable to be here this evening. But from Fossil Ridge, Dr. Julie Chaplin is our interim principal, and is Jamie with you this evening? So Jamie, if you'd like to come up, and Dr. Chaplin will say a few words and introduce you.
Well, Jamie Bonjour definitely represents one of the highest character awarded students within our school. She's been phenomenal at so many extracurricular activities and events, as well as academic scholarship, and so we're really honored to have her family continue their tradition at Fossil Ridge, and for Jamie as well. And Jamie, do you want to tell them where you went to school throughout PSD?
Sure. So I went to Trout Elementary School, and then Kennard Middle School, and then Fossil Ridge High School. So yeah. I'm going to Indiana University to study business next year. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Next we have the National Hispanic Recognition Scholars, and I don't believe we have anybody here this evening, but, oh, we do? Taylor? Okay, so Dr. Chaplin's going to introduce Taylor Trujillo from Fossil Ridge. Taylor, are you here? Come on up.
Great. Well, Taylor is another great student here from Fossil Ridge High School. We're very proud and honored to have him contribute to diversity and leadership within our school, and we know that he'll carry on as well. And Taylor, do you want to talk to them about where you've been in Poudre School District and where you're going afterwards?
Yeah. So I too went to Trout Elementary, and then I went to Liberty Middle School, and then Fossil Ridge High School, obviously. And then I'll either be going to Mines or Brown next fall.
Forgot to tell you that the National Hispanic Recognition Scholar Honor is awarded by the College Board and recognizes the top 5,000 Hispanic and Latino students out of 250,000 who take the PSAT during their junior year. So it's based on his PSAT scores. Okay. So now we have our National Merit Scholar finalists. And National Merit Scholars score in the top 1% academically among Colorado seniors. Scholars can win two types of National Merit Scholarships, a one-time $2,500 award or a corporate-sponsored achievement scholarship. They've earned this elite designation through a 2-year testing and application process. And we have quite a few with us this evening. So again, we'll start with Dr. Chaplin. We have several from Fossil Ridge, and then we'll go on to Liberty. Mr. Schaefer, I saw you sneak in. And then we'll end with Dr. Woodall with Rocky.
Okay, great. We have a number of scholars, so I'll read all their names, and then we have a few here with us this evening. So Nick Lynn, who couldn't be with us this evening, Madeline Patine, Lucas Ray, Kaylee Cox, and then I know David Perkins is here, so come on up, David. Yes, and I think, is Dallin here too? Okay, great. Oh, Matt, oh, you are here. Hello, hello, you are here. So Dallin Crawford, and I don't believe he ended up coming, and neither did Johnny Lamans, unless I missed them come in. Okay, great. So I'll let these two, oh, is Johnny back here? Oh, there, come on. No, Dallin? Okay, all right. I was like, no, you guys are swimmers. I know these guys. They're not. That's great. Anyway, we couldn't be more proud again. The hard work and determination that they put into and the academic excellence, the amount of time that they put into their studies here really contributed a lot. And it's such a great honor. They have to be thrilled with their success, and I hope their families are for all the hard work that they've done to stand beside them and the support that they've given them over their entire school career. And so I'll let each of you come up, say your names once again, and then talk about where you've been in Poudre School District and where you're going to go.
I'm Madeline Patine. I went to Timnath Elementary, Kennard Middle School, and Fossil Ridge High School, and I'm going to see Boulder next year to study astrophysics.
And I'm David Perkins. I went to Zach Elementary, then Kennard Middle School, and then Fossil Ridge High School. And next year I'll be going to CU Boulder to study aerospace engineering. So.
Mr. Schaefer, would you like to come introduce the National Merit Scholar finalists from Liberty Common?
Sure. Well, thank you, and good afternoon, good evening, board. I think there's only two from my school. The other five are not here, but I see Ben Seipel here and Joshua Rohrbaugh. Why don't you guys come on up? And David, excuse me, Josh was right next to him. Sorry about that, David. I apologize. You know, our scholars here at the school that are represented today are extraordinarily hard workers, and they've taken academics and kind of made it a team sport. So these are a couple of the captains here who have excelled not only academically, but in terms of leadership in the school, in terms of our house system and robotics, and our school treasurer, as well as our robotics teams, soccer and sports as well. These guys, as well as the others who couldn't be here tonight, really just personify the virtues and values that we celebrate at the school: prudence, temperance, justice, fortitude, gratitude, and patriotism, and our keystone virtue of wisdom. If you want to know what all those things look like wrapped up in one, and together, there they are right there. So fellows, why don't you let everybody know, and your parents are here as well. They're primary teachers, and Rex Seipel, Ben's dad, also is a teacher at the school. So tell everybody where you're headed to. And
Hi, I'm Ben Seipel. I attended Liberty for 5 years, and I'm going to Lewis and Clark College to study biochemistry.
I am David Rohrbaugh, and let's see, I went to Trout Core Knowledge and then transferred over to Liberty Common, and I'll be going to CSU studying computer engineering.
We do have a National Merit Scholar finalist from Poudre High School, Miss Ariel Roy, and she's not here this evening, Miss McKay. Okay, so we'll do a round of applause for Ariel in absentia. Dr. Woodall, if you'd like to introduce your Rocky finalists.
Thanks for having us here. I appreciate it. Just an opportunity to recognize our students is amazing. I do want to mention, too, on the National Hispanic Recognition, we had Xavier Edgren. Unfortunately, was not able to make it tonight, but he was also a winner of the National Hispanic Recognition. And we had 3 National Merit finalists. Brandon, why don't you come on up? Only one was able to make it tonight. Our first 2, Russ Huang was our valedictorian, heading to Johns Hopkins. Noel Boynton was our salutatorian going to CU Boulder, and I was going to introduce Brandon with where he was going and what he's majoring in, but I will let Brandon do that if you're comfortable with that. Go for it.
Hi. So I'll be going to CSU, and I will be majoring in computer science, and I'll be minoring in political science. Oh, sorry. So I actually didn't live in Colorado until junior year, where I went to Rocky. Before then, I lived in California, and before that in Ohio. I'd rather not state the specific schools that I went to, because I actually can't remember them all.
Well, on behalf of the board, I'd like to congratulate all of our scholars. You guys have all worked hard, and the school district is very proud of all of you. And I think that also that we can see, because you're also spread across all the schools, that you all had great teachers and great support. And I think that you're all going to have great futures, and we're looking forward to hearing back from you. And I hope you'll come back and tell us what you've all done. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
While they're finishing up what we call the Walk of Fame, Mr. McKinstry, would you like to join me up here? And Director Donovan? So now we're going to talk about, we've gone from scholars, and now we're going to go to our athletic champions. And with us we have District Athletic Director, Mr. Russ McKinstry. He's going to talk about our athletic championships this year.
Good evening, Dr. Smizer and Board of Education. I'm here tonight to talk about the fantastic athletic season we had this spring season. We're very blessed to have some great athletes in our district, and tonight we get to recognize the best of the best, the elite of the elite, and we're really fortunate that all 4 of our large comprehensive high schools are represented. So I think that's really awesome that we have champions from all 4 high schools. We're going to start, first of all, with Kendall Wilson, Athletic Director from Poudre High School, who will talk about our tennis champion.
Good evening, Board of Education, Dr. Smizer. I wanted to thank you for your continued support for athletics and the impact that it has on both these young men and women. I have the pleasure of talking a little bit about Coach Ecton. She is a Poudre alumni, and we were fortunate enough that she returned to Poudre to teach math and coach tennis. Coach Ecton has coached both for our boys and girls program, and this year she completes her 28th season as the varsity girls tennis coach. Coach Ecton runs a no-cut program. This provides many girls the opportunity to participate and to learn the game. She holds numerous regional titles and consistently qualifies girls for state each year. She has coached 5 state champions and is proud of the number of girls who have come through her program. So it is my honor to introduce Coach Ecton.
Thank you for inviting us here tonight, and I would like to congratulate all of the honorees tonight and the state champions. It's an honor to be here tonight to recognize Kai Ecton, not only as our coach, but of course as her mother. She had a fabulous season. She finished, first of all, finished her junior year at Poudre High School in the International Baccalaureate program, played #1 singles for me. And she had a great season, finished 9-0 in dual matches, finished second at 2 tournaments, was undefeated in postseason play, won her conference. The coaches of the Front Range League named her as Front Range League Player of the Year. Went down run regionals, which qualified her for the state tournament. I would have to say she probably put more hours on the court than any other 5A tennis athlete, over 9 hours, and her finals was the longest we've ever watched, 3 hours, 45 minutes or so. So it was an epic match. We don't know if it's the longest in history, but it was, Kendall said, longer than a football game. So a little bit about her. She has a beautiful game. Her weapon of choice would be her forehand. She's a fierce competitor. I think her opponents would say she has a no-quit attitude. But I think what I'm most proud of is how she conducts herself on the court. She's a lady on and off the court. She respects herself, the game, and her opponents, competes with integrity and grace, and represents herself, our family, Poudre High School in this district with class. So very proud of your accomplishments, Kai.
I have the opportunity, I'm very privileged to be able to travel outside the region to play tennis tournaments, but one of my favorite things is playing for my high school and school district because the team is amazing, but also I get to represent Fort Collins. And I'm proud to be a Tavelli Tiger, CLP Pirate, and now a Poudre Impala. Thank you.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce the 5A Athletic Director of the Year, Wayne Modelmog from Rocky Mountain High School.
Thank you. I would also like to echo what Kendall said with regards to district support for athletics. I've been in this game a long time, and I've traveled around the state, and I just want you to know the appreciation that we all have as coaches, as athletes, and teachers and administrators. The support that we get in this district is phenomenal, and the representation that we have is obviously phenomenal. So once again, thank you for all you do and the support that you give to our programs, because it's vital, and I think it's healthy, and the character education that we provide through sport is very important. I'd like to introduce Kate Hansen and Gabby McDonald, if they could come on up. One of our state champions, Gabby McDonald, I'm going to let Coach Hansen talk a little bit specifically about her, but I will just say this about Gabby. She would be able to compete with fierce pride and in any endeavor that she would choose to make. I think she's been a 5-sport athlete at Rocky Mountain High School. She's currently a 3-sport athlete, but she also played softball, and had she continued playing softball, I'm sure she'd been a great competitor there as well. So I'd like to introduce Coach Hansen, who will say just a few things about Gabby.
So thank you all for having us here. Gabby, I don't know what to say about her. She's an absolute special kid, special athlete. I've been doing this, I've been in athletics for over 25 years now, and I don't think I've ever seen an athlete or been witness to an athlete quite like her. She's one of a kind. I know once in a lifetime in my coaching career. This season she was undefeated in both her shot put and discus competitions. She was a conference champ in both and state champion in both, and she was set the state meet record in the discus as well. So she's just a special kid, an amazing athlete, and I can't be more proud of her, and thank you for taking me along with for the ride with you. So.
So I went to Johnson Elementary School, Weber Middle School, and then currently I'm at Rocky Mountain High School. I'll be a senior there next year. And then after that, I'm going to CSU to play track and soccer. So.
Now we'll bring up Mr. Cadu, Skip Cadu, who will talk about the Fort Collins state champions.
Thank you, Russ, and thank you also, Board, for giving us this time to honor these student athletes. It's my job as athletic director at Fort Collins High School is it's a busy, but it's very enjoyable because I get to spend a lot of time with a lot of really good teacher, coaches, and student athletes, and the work they do in our community and competing around the state is really a great thing to be a part of. And like Kendall and Wayne said, thank you for your support and all of that to make this happen. I'd like to bring up Coach Conrad Christ and Audra Koopman. They are here today. Audra is our state championship this year in track. You know, and Audra, this is weird, but I get lost in what event it is. Long jump, right? Yeah. Okay. Mr. Christ.
All right, thanks for having us again. Lauren Greger is also state champion for us in the 800 and 1600, second in the 32. She couldn't make it tonight, she's working. She's headed to the University of Arkansas on a full ride track and cross country scholarship. Lauren, and she's been honored here pretty much every year since she's been a freshman, has more state titles at our school than any other kid in school history. And she is currently ranked third in the nation in the mile. So she is a special kid as well. Audra here, like Mr. Cadu says, can't keep track of what event she's in because she pretty much does everything. I told her this at the end of the year at our awards night. She's probably the best athlete I've ever seen come out of Fort Collins High School since I've been there in the last 8 years, maybe in school history. A big, tall kid. She plays volleyball, runs track for us. She's a 28-inch standing vert, which means she can almost touch the rim, and that is impressive out of a high school kid. So she is the defending state champion long jumps. This is the second year in a row that she's won that event. She is headed to Penn State on a full ride track scholarship, but don't let that mistake you. She's also a 4.0 grade point average kid, so I'll have her come up.
So I went to Riffenburg Elementary, Lesher Middle School, and then I just graduated from Fort Collins High School. So thanks.
Now it's my pleasure to introduce Brandon Carlucci from Fossil Ridge High School.
Well, I am certainly not going to be the one AD that doesn't say thank you on behalf of athletics. So yeah, I have an overkill here. No, thank you, Board, for having us, and Dr. Smizer, Cabinet as well. And obviously, I think all four of us as athletic directors, we're in this business because we know the role athletics played in our lives as a part of the complete education, and we're passionate about that. And certainly we couldn't do it without you, so we do thank you for that. I've got the pleasure tonight of introducing I'll introduce our swim coach. But you are looking here at a couple of our, this is the 3-time defending state champion 5A boys swim team from Fossil Ridge, so give them a round of applause. Swimming is kind of one of those sports that doesn't get a whole lot of hype, and we kind of forget about it, and then we tune in for 2 weeks every 4 years as we watch the Olympics. And you know, even though it's a big deal at Fossil, it doesn't get a lot of fanfare just because of the nature of the sport. And so, you know, they don't do it for any other reason except for the fact that that they love the sport. And all I can say about swimmers is they work really, really hard, and you don't just dip your toe in the pool. If you're going to be a swimmer, you're going to be a swimmer, and you might not be able to be a lot of other things, and it takes that type of dedication. In fact, we were at the state meet, and I was talking to Coach Morehouse, and or one of the coaches, it might have been Coach Morehouse, and this was on a Saturday. It was the finals. The guys that already had the tournament wrapped up, they wrapped it up Friday night. The Saturday was really just an exercise, wasn't it, guys? Which was pretty neat. And he said, yeah, Brandon, he said, they'll be in the pool Monday with their club team. So there was no time for celebration and resting and relaxing. It was right back to it for their summer program and to get into it that way. So we've got a lot of hard workers at Fossil Ridge, and we've got the weight room full, the field's full right now, and the field's getting ready for next season. But certainly I would say some of our most dedicated and hardest workers are boys and girls swim, and the time they put in and being in the pool at what time, guys, in the morning? 5:15 in the pool in the morning. So congratulations to you. What a legacy you guys have left at Fossil Ridge. 3 great big trophies in the trophy case. You're going to be able to come back and show your kids. And we got a couple juniors up here, and so we'll make a run at a 4th next year. I'll bring up Mark Morehouse. Mark, boys swimming kind of gets lost as a spring sport, and so awards sometimes, they fall in those summer months. But Mark Morehouse was virtually named the Coach of the Year for 2016 after they repeated at every level, the state and the national level as well. So the only reason he didn't win it again this year was because I think they wanted to share the love a little bit. But the 2016 State Coach of the Year, National Coach of the Year, Coach Mark Morehouse.
All right, thanks for the opportunity to recognize these guys, and congratulations to all the state champions. I read about the tennis match, and I was like, wow, that's 4-hour tennis match is harder than what we do sometimes. So I'm just going to introduce these guys, and we had 25 members of our team qualify for the state championships this year, which is over 50% of our team. So this is just kind of a small group of the guys. So we're going to start with Bryce Henry here, who's a junior. And here's what I want to say about Bryce. This was his first year qualifying for the state championships. And he's a really good example of the impact athletics can have on a kid's kind of their whole academic career. So one of Bryce's teachers showed me his college essay. And really what he said in there is he struggled in swimming and decided that he wanted to do better and use that kind of as a springboard to do better in everything that he does at school. And his grades have gone way up since his freshman year, and his swimming accomplishments have gone way up. He was a critical member of our team this year and is going to be a big part of our team next year. Should I have these guys one at a time to say where schools they went to, or do it at the end? Okay. All right, so then next we have Matt Garrity here. So Matt is truly one of the best swimmers in the state. He was 3rd in 2 individual events and part of 2 state champion relays. He's an All-American, and he's a junior, and he'll be back next year. Next we have Maxim Kondratenko. He is one of our senior captains. Maxim's been on our state team for several years, but this was his first year making finals and scoring points. And Maxim is also an academic All-American, which is a pretty big deal. And then finally we have Sam Wybara, and Sam is another one of our team captains. He was, I think, 4th and 5th in his individual events on 2 state championship relays. He is also an All-American. So an All-American means you're one of the top 100 people in your event in the country. I just looked the other day. Our medley relay, which Sam was on, is ranked 7th in the country right now. And our 2 free relays that Matt was on, both of those are both ranked, I think one's 12th and one's 13th. So that's, in terms of the history of our program, that's the highest we've ever been, which is pretty cool. So I'll let these guys introduce themselves and say where they're going, and yeah, thanks.
I'm Sam Wybara. I moved here from Indiana, and I went straight to Preston Middle School, and then I attended Fossil Ridge, and I'll be taking a gap year and swimming all year, and then committing in the fall.
Hi, I'm Maxim. I moved here when I was in 3rd grade, so I went to Zach for elementary school, then I went to Kennard, and then I went to Fossil, and I'm going to CU next year. So.
Hi, I'm Matt. I started at Warner Elementary, went to Preston Middle School, and now I will be a senior at Fossil Ridge.
I'm Bryce. I went to Bacon Elementary, Preston Middle School, and next year I'll be a senior at Fossil.
Once again, Mr. Wayne Monomog from Rocky Mountain High School.
Okay, I'd like to talk a little bit about our baseball program. Coach Roy Trippi, one of our assistants, is here, along with Trey Wagner, Spencer John Rowe, and Austin Maciel. Talk a little bit about I'll let Coach talk a little bit about the season, but I'll just talk a little bit about our program. a program that is, the head coach is Coach Scott Bullock, who was the 5A baseball coach of the year this year, and he's been recognized as that 5A coach on several occasions. The legacy that Coach Bullock has created at Rocky Mountain High School is pretty incredible. In the last 11 years, our baseball program has been represented in the state final 8 times in those years, and we've won the state title 6 times and finished second the others. So it's quite an incredible program, and Coach Trippy has been a longtime assistant for Coach Bullock, and I'll let Coach Trippy talk a little bit about these kids.
Well, like everybody said, thank you for recognizing all the hard work that our players have put in throughout the season. And one of my favorite things about this team is I think they represent really what a lot of education is about. We talk about student athletes all the time, and there was a lot of perseverance and critical thinking and problem solving that happened throughout the year. This was a team that at one point was 1-5 on the season and finished where they did. And so you can imagine being 1-5 as a coach. We're doing a lot of problem solving and critical thinking, trying to figure out what's happening here. And like most teenagers, they came up with a solution, and they presented it to us as it was our pregame music. That's what was wrong. And so whatever it might have been, it worked, and we are feeling very fortunate to once again have a chance to celebrate a state championship, because they're not easy. And I know that all of these other athletes and programs up here will tell you they are not easy to win. So these players have definitely been very, very easy to work with, and I think that's been one of our favorite things as coaches. They definitely can demonstrate to you that when you are doing something that you love, all the hard work is easy. And they definitely put in a lot of hard work. So I'm going to let these guys introduce themselves and talk about where they went to school and what their future plans are here. So thank you once again.
I'm Trey Wagner. I went to St. Joseph Elementary School, and then I was homeschooled, and then went to Liberty Common, and then went to Rocky Mountain. And then next year I'm going to University of Gonzaga to study business.
Spencer Jandro. I went to McGraw Elementary and then Weber Middle School and then Rocky, and I'll be playing baseball next year at Scottsdale Community College in Arizona.
I'm Austin Maciel. I went to Werner Elementary, then to Preston Middle School, then Rocky Mountain High School. I'm going to Chapman University in Southern California next year.
On behalf of the Board of Education, we're proud of all our students and our student athletes, and I would like to give a nod to the Colorado newspaper for the coverage, the good sports coverage, because when we can't be at these games, some of us, I know it's difficult to fathom, but some of us think that it's more exciting to go watch a sporting event in Poudre School District than attend a school board meeting. So sometimes that happens. And just a personal note, in a former life, I was a school bus driver for Poudre School District, and I drove many of these teams to their competitions, including one time when I went to watch the Rocky Mountain High School baseball team at the state playoffs. And some of you may remember it because it got coverage in the Colorado, and that the baseball team, I don't know if they still are superstitious, but they used to be superstitious and keep goldfish in the dugout 24/7, and I didn't realize it, but they took the goldfish to the game with them. And I got on the bus to visit my former colleague, bus driver, and apparently the 5-gallon bucket with the fish in it didn't get secured in the back of the bus. So it slid the length of the aisle when it came to a stop, and crashed into the dashboard, and luckily not many of the fish were injured, except they might have been traumatized. So if they still do that, I think that was the year you didn't win the state championship, and it could have been because the good luck charm got a little shaken up. So congratulations to all the champions and all of our students and student athletes.
Okay, while they're finishing up, we'll call up Miss Sarah Ballou with Integrated Services to talk about our Mary Hull Awards. Are you ready? Go for it.
Board directors, Dr. Smizer and Cabinet, first thank you for allowing me to come forward and present the Mary Hull Award recipients this evening. So this year, on April 20th, we held the 30th annual Mary Hull Awards banquet and had staff, students, parents, community members celebrating 16 nominees for the four awards and the 4 recipients of the awards. It was a great evening. Oftentimes, though, people ask me, who is Mary Hull and why are these awards named after her? So Mary Hull was a longtime special educator and employee of Poudre School District. She started her career in the 1960s prior to IDEA and 94-142 as a speech and language clinician and ended her career in the 80s as an assistant director of special education. And the awards were named after her 30 years ago because of the dedication she showed towards students with disabilities, as well as the impact she not only had on special education, but on Poudre School District. Tonight, 2 of the 4 award winners are here. I want to talk for a minute about the 2 who aren't here. So we have, Greg Neal is a physical education teacher who runs an integrated program at Fossil Ridge High School, and he was our collaborative award winner. Kim Eberhard is a special education teacher who works with our students with serious emotional disabilities. She was our special education teacher award winner, and she was not able to be here this evening. But we do have our honorary award winners, and there are 3 of them because they come together. And the honorary award is given to a classified staff member or community member who's gone above and beyond to assist or volunteer with students with disabilities. And tonight we have Jim, Nancy, and Ollie Patella. So you can come on forward. And they are our Mary Hull honorary winners. So Ollie wasn't quite sure whether he could wait or not, but he did a good job. I thought for a minute he might bark. So Jim, Nancy, and Ollie are with HABIC, Human Animal Bond in Colorado team, and they volunteer throughout Poudre School District, HABIC does, and Jim and Nancy have been with HABIC for 4 years, and specifically have worked at Shepherdson Elementary and Fossil Ridge High School recently with our students with disabilities. So HABIC has been around since 1993 and is a collaboration with Colorado State University and their social work department, and they do work within Poudre School District to assist all types of students. So I wanted to give a quote that came from somebody who works with Nancy, Jim, and Ollie. So Jasmine is a school social worker, and she says this about Nancy, Jim, and Ollie. They tailor the students' sessions to fit their needs and goals, but also add special touches to find out what students like. We have seen our students' independence, responsibility, confidence, self-esteem, ability to follow directions, and problem solve improve over time as they have worked with Jim, Nancy, and Ollie. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for your kindness. We really appreciate it. And thanks for giving us this opportunity to address you. Integrated Services with Sarah as the director and Fossil Ridge High School with Julie as a principal and Poudre School District in general with Lila Bartman and all the help she's given us. We really appreciate just amazing organizations. The people in these organizations, the teachers, the counselors, the social workers, the therapists we work with, they really care about the students. It's really remarkable to see, and it's a joy to work with these folks. They're very creative. They've developed programs such as Unified Sports. They really give these students a lot of self-esteem. And if you haven't seen a Unified Sports activity, I mean, we were just blown away by seeing all the students, both the ones without special needs as the ones with, and how much support they gained from everyone. So it really was remarkable. So the teacher or the counselor or the therapist, they're with us at every session, and they're the ones that have the experience with the students. So they can come up with, and they do come up with a list of goals, and they give that to Nancy and me, and then we take those goals and develop a plan with our dog, Ollie, to meet these goals and hopefully exceed these goals. We really appreciate you guys allowing Havoc to be a part of what's happening here. The objective of Havoc is to help people and also to break the ice with our dogs, to encourage our students, or the Poudre School District students, to actually think creatively, communicate well, and be open to instruction and advice. And breaking that ice makes that happen. So the dog is really the one that does the work. So we've worked with a girl with cerebral palsy, and the only way she can communicate is with sign language. And she's made a lot of progress. At the end of the year, she was able to get the water bowl out of the bag, fill the water bowl with water. She walked the dog around the building, and the counselors and the teachers and the social worker were excited about this because they believe that she can actually use these skills at a vet's office or at a kennel. The second student we had, the objective was to improve his assertiveness. And at the end of the year, he conducted a program where he commanded our dog, and he used a very strong voice, but also a very caring voice. And he was able to go through all the commands that our dog knows. So again, thank you very much for this opportunity to serve you folks, to volunteer. It really has opened our eyes to the remarkable things that you folks are doing with students with special needs. Thank you.
The next award winner that's here this evening is Lila Bartman, and she is the recipient of the Specialized Services Award for Mary Hall. So come on forward. Lila is our lead occupational therapist, and she's also our professional practice expert in her field. A colleague of Lila says this about her: Lila Bartman has been a leader, exceptional colleague, mentor, collaborator, and teacher within Poudre School District for the past 19 years. Lila's efforts are far-reaching. As the department lead, she has facilitated and led varied professional development opportunities, both for occupational therapists as well as specialized service professionals in general. Lila's effort in direct practice with the students and families during her 19-year tenure has helped them be successful to the best of their abilities. Lila Bartman.
Thank you and good evening. I appreciate this opportunity to see you again. And I'm on the tail end of a summer cold, so I will make this real brief. I do want to let you know that I take my job role and my responsibility very seriously. It has been such a privilege to work with children from preschool age on through our transition programs for all of these years. And to see our kids come in, the way they arrive at school, we have no control over. Some of them come bouncing in the door, they're happy and eager, and they're ready to go. Others, they don't have the opportunities, maybe, that we have in our lives. And we don't know how they will arrive. And we take them as they are, and we greet them with open arms, and it's been really a privilege and honor to be able to support these kids across all grade levels and help them meet their goals. Under Sarah's great leadership and with partners such as Jim and Nancy and Ollie, I couldn't ask for anything more. So thank you.
So I just want to say that above all else, we take very seriously the services these people do, and it's incredibly meaningful to all of us, so we thank you. But it would be hard for me to let this opportunity pass to stand up at a podium and say thank you to a dog as well. So thanks for lightening our hearts and making us all feel better tonight. So on behalf of the board, we appreciate everything you've done. So.
While they're finishing up, I'll call up Misty Nugent. She is the president of the Poudre School District Foundation, and Mr. Patterson, and we're going to talk about our Excellence in Education Award winners from this year.
Hi, as Daniel said, I'm Misty Nugent with the PSD Foundation Board, and I too would like to thank the Board of Education for your partnership with the foundation and your amazing vision for our partnership going forward. So the Excellence in Education Award is a really great way for us to recognize the amazing teachers in our district and the things that they're doing with our students every day. And the EIE Award has been a tradition in Poudre School District for about 25 years in one form or another. And the foundation sponsors a banquet in February at which we recognize some of the teachers in our district. And actually through the great work of Susan Gutowski, who is also a foundation board member, there's been a new vision for the EIE Awards in an effort to make it a little bit more team-based and excitement and a little just more emotional, I think, for the teachers. And so starting this year, we are doing recognizing the teachers through the feeder system. And we started with Poudre High School feeder system this year. And for those of you who have not been to the event, I would like to invite you next year because it is really fun. It's really cool. We had a lot of schools show up in their school gear with pom-poms and cheering for their teachers, and it was really cool. So I'm going to go through the list of teachers that we recognize this year. Each of the elementary and middle schools and Poudre High School in the feeder system nominated one teacher to be recognized, and then there was one teacher selected as the Poudre School District Teacher of the Year from that group. So I know some of you are here this evening. If you're here, please step up. I believe we've got a certificate for you as well. So the teachers that were recognized this year are Pamela Skye from Cache La Poudre Elementary School, Cheryl Duke from Cache La Poudre Middle School, Kathy Zabel from Dunn Elementary School, Kendra Neal from Eystone Elementary, Kyla Walker from Lincoln Middle School, Jeff Brubaker from Poudre High School, Sarah Bayer from Polaris Elementary. Oh no, she's the middle school, isn't she, Joe? High school, I'm sorry. Sorry. Okay. Carrie Kemp from Putnam Elementary School. Casey Ross from Red Feather Lakes Elementary School. Carolyn Kamer from Rice Elementary School. Rob Deacon from Tavelli. Amanda Ferguson from Wellington Middle School. And our Poudre School District Teacher of the Year was Melissa Hudson from Irish. Danielle, do they each come up to speak, or? Okay. So if you'd like to step up to Rob, give a certificate, and Melissa will have you say a few words.
Extra bonus. Congratulations. Thanks very much. Thank you.
I wonder the percentage of teachers who are terrified to talk in front of adults. I don't know why that is, but not terrified is a little extreme, but in any case. But I do want to thank the board in this district. I'm very proud to work in this district. I said it at the banquet as well. I just think this district gives incredible support to their teachers and to their students, and I have friends who teach all around the United States, and I really truly feel that's an accurate statement to say how we are very well supported. And my kids go to this, my daughter goes to Leicester, and they both went to, my son goes to Irish, and I'm constantly impressed by the teaching and the athletics. Yay, athletics. I love athletics too, so I do feel like they're very well supported in that. And the banquet was awesome, and it really felt wonderful to be appreciated in that way, and it was really emotional since we had no idea who was going to win, and all had to prepare a speech. I'm glad I knew I had to prepare a speech just in case, but I really did appreciate that recognition, so I hope that that continues and the teachers keep being supported in that way. It was truly a wonderful evening, and yeah, all the teachers in this district are amazing and deserve recognition. So thank you very much, Poudre School District and the board, and Dr. Smizer, for all you do for us. Thank you.
So I'll just say that clearly teachers are one of the linchpins in the success of our students, and so we're pleased and very proud to honor excellence in that field and all of the great things that you do for the students of the district. So thank you so much, and congratulations.
Go ahead. And this concludes our recognitions this evening. I'm sorry, what? Oh, sure.
That brings us to item 4.5, which is the superintendent report. Dr. Smizer.
Thank you. So since our last meeting, I met with the Fort Collins Chamber Legal Legislative Action Committee, also the Community Foundation Celebration of Philanthropy event, and had a chance to meet with Coloradoan leadership. And we're continuing to have follow-up meetings organized and led by the Bohemian Foundation, following up to our trip to Salt Lake City. So we are following up on that work group, which is an interesting project. Attended many scholarship awards ceremonies. The Community Advisory Board conducted interviews for Mountain Schools principals, and actually some other ones since then. Gave commencement speeches at 8 ceremonies. To be specific, I think I could say I gave a commencement speech at 8 ceremonies. And visited Liberty Common High School, O'Day, Riffenburg, and Laurel, and wrapped up another amazing school year. So it's this time of year when we can take a breath. I always have to remind everyone that our facilities people, our operations people, our HR departments are working. This is the busiest time of year for many of our employees, and so I don't want to say that we're all taking a deep breath and going on a break when there's a significant portion of our employees that are really moving fast right now. Summer seems very, very short for a lot of our people. So thanks to all of them for the work that they are about to do. And that's my report.
Thank you, Dr. Smizer. And that brings us to 4.6, which is the board report. And I believe Director Pedersen will deliver that tonight.
So anyway, to share with you the work that the board is doing collectively between our meetings. We attended a boatload of graduations, obviously the 8 that the superintendent spoke at that she mentioned, but there were also a lot of smaller ones for some of our specialized programs, and we were honored to be there and enjoy those ceremonies with the students who were graduating. We also participated in the District Accountability Committee, the DAB Academic Subcommittee, the District Advisory Board, attended the National Technical Honor Society Awards, the IB Convocation, concerts in some of our high schools, scholarship breakfasts in some of our high schools, and visited the Summer Institute. For those of you who don't know, the Summer Institute is a training opportunity for our teachers. We have, I guess it's over, it finished now, right? Yeah. But the previous couple of weeks, some of our teachers were working, honing their craft, and getting prepared for next year already. So there was a lot of hard work, and it was very interesting to attend that and see some of the things that they're talking about. With all the graduation attendances and whatnot, we didn't have much chance to do board development, but we did continue our tradition of having informal board lunches to facilitate our work together. In the community, as usual, we attended the Early Childhood Policy Council. We held our regular community engagement sessions, held meetings with a variety of constituents on a variety of issues, attended a community safety meeting. David, I don't know whether you want to speak any more about that. You were one of the ones who attended that, and it seemed pretty interesting, so I thought I'd toss the ball to you for a second.
What we had was a really worthwhile evening organized by John McKay and Assistant U.S. Attorney Juan Villaseñor from Denver. We had 3 members of the U.S. Attorney's Office. We had an FBI representative. We had the sheriff. We had someone from the police department. We had 3 social workers. We had the consul from the consulate office of Mexico in Denver. And we also had an immigration attorney, and talked about all sorts of aspects of what they did and what their values were in approaching issues in the community related to safety. And we had a nice audience, but it should have had 146,000 people in there, or whatever our number is for the whole city.
Okay, and so the other thing we continue to do in the community, if you will, is to do legislative work. Several folks met with legislators and lobbyists. The Board of Education Legislative Subcommittee meets every regular meeting of the board before this board meeting. We attended legislative wrap-up sessions, both of those held by legislators, state legislators, and that one held by CASB, and also attended the CASB Legislative Resolutions Committee. You'll hear later in the agenda some legislative work we're already preparing for next year. This is sort of an ongoing process to make sure that we're prepared to influence legislation as best we can in favor of for the benefit of our students and our district. I would just point out that if you want to run for a seat on the Board of Education, there are 3 seats, I believe, up for election this fall. You can contact any board member or Tessa Oppenheimer, who is our PSD designated election official, for more information on that. And we will continue our series of community engagement sessions again starting in August. So look for information about that. You can always contact any of us to chat about any subject related to education in the school district at any time, and we'll try to get together with you. So thanks again.
Thank you very much. Would any other board members like to make any comments? Okay. Well, thank you very much. Next up, we have community comment. We just have one speaker signed up, and I'm going to go ahead and call you Carlos because I know it's a little bit confusing, but you're up now because the item that you want to talk about is on the consent agenda, so you're good.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen of the board, cabinet. I'm here on behalf of PEA, but also as all teachers, just to thank you guys once again for another incredible year here working at PSD, and just the incredible spirit of cooperation that we just feel when we work with you guys, that just keeps making us loving our jobs even more and more. And to thank you once again for agreeing to the employee agreement. That was my big reason for up here. Thank you once again, because that is, again, a big reason why we work so well together. Short and sweet. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming back in the summer to talk to us. Okay, that brings us.
I just thought for the.
Oh, Nate.
For the viewing audience, PEA is Poudre Education Association, the
Good point.
organization for teachers.
Thank you. Thank you to all the teachers for all they do every day for all of our students. Okay, Rob?
Yeah, one other thing I would just add is that the agreement that we're going to work on tonight, or we're going to likely approve, or in the consent agenda, thank you very much, is in fact with all of the employee groups, our classified, our teachers and our administrative folks, and we appreciate all the work that all of you folks do day to day, and of course the work that you've done in helping to reach this agreement for the district. So thanks very much.
Nate?
And even though they're not speaking, the representatives of the other groups regularly attend these meetings.
And are here tonight, very quietly observing. Okay, great. I see we had somebody just walk in who likes to comment. Mr. Sutherland, if you would like to comment generally, that's fine. If you're looking to comment on the budget item, that will be pulled from the consent agenda, and you're welcome to comment it at that time if you wish. Okay, so let us move on. May I have a motion to approve on the consent agenda? Would anybody like to remove anything from the consent agenda first? David?
Item 617, the budget.
Okay, you wish to remove that? Okay. Nate, would you like to make a motion?
Sure. I move that the board approve and adopt the recommended actions for the items remaining on the consent agenda.
May I have a second? Second. Susan? Okay. Roll call?
Nate?
Yes.
Christoph?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Okay, and item 6.17, which was removed from the consent agenda, will now be the new action item 8.4. That's the proposed budget for the 2017-18 fiscal year. Okay, let us go on to discussion items. Who do we have here tonight to talk about 7.1, internal monitoring report, second semester review, EL 2.1, treatment of students, parents, guardians, and the general public?
Danielle.
Danielle Clark, Executive Director of Communications, is here tonight to talk about that with us.
I forgot, sorry. It's been one of those days.
I was trying to read the entire title to give you time.
Thank you, Mrs. Kipp, Dr. Smizer, members of the board. This evening, we're going to do our second semester monitoring of Executive Limitation 2.1, which is treatment of students, parents and guardians, and the general public. So basically, just to review what the executive limitation is, it basically says that the programs and policy and implementations of the policies that Dr. Smizer directs are not going to be in the double negative, unsafe, untimely, undignified, or unnecessarily intrusive and restrictive. There are 14 different components of the report which you have before you this evening. I'm not going to go through all of them. Many of them are not applicable within the second semester, which we log from January 1 through June 30th. And just so you know, anything that is has a number attached to it has been forward thinking, so we'll address those when we get to those. So these are all the different components of the report, and we will talk this evening about several of them that have changed over the course of the last 6 months. So public input. We have our long-range plan, we have our budget, and we have our curriculum adoption. Our long-range plan, we talked about the bond and mill and going out for the bond and the extensive community engagement we did prior to the board resolution to go for the bond, and many of the community organizations that Dr. Smizer went and talked to, including Saratoma, the Chamber of Commerce, Rotary, as such. And then for the curriculum adoption, it was several of the curriculum adoptions. It was world geography and I believe calculus, perhaps, and I left the report sitting on my desk, which is why I'm trying to think about it. And we do extensive community engagement with that. We have an adoption committee that has several stakeholder groups on it, and parents and teachers and administrators do sit on that for both of those adoptions. The budget process this year was quite extensive. It begins back in the first semester, but it really gets rolling in the second semester when the legislative session starts to get a little heat on it. So this year, for the budget, we did quite a bit of community outreach. We went out and we talked to several groups about the budget, about the reserve issue. We talked to principals, we talked to community members. I believe Mr. Montoya talked to the DAB and the DAC. Which for those is the District Advisory Board, which is our parent community group, and then the DAC, the District Accountability Committee, which I believe is required by law and has a cross-section of representatives from our community of our different student populations on it. I believe he also talked to the Budget Advisory Group, which has a whole bunch of other people, again, community members, parents, staff on that. And I won't go into all of the things that we talked about, but we went into detail about the reserve issue with the district, the different options that the district was looking at, as well as potential outcomes from legislation throughout the process. Right up until the last day of the legislative session, we were uncertain of where things were going to go. So we were soliciting input regarding not only our reserve situation and what we were going to potentially see, but how that was going to potentially impact our budget for this year, which Mr. Montoya will be presenting to you later this evening. We have on the left is indicative of our administrative hiring process. So we hired, I believe, Vicki, 4 or 5 different principals this year. And so as part of that process, we have not only our central office team that goes out and solicits input from the staff and the parents about what characteristics they want to see, but then we have representatives from our parent and our staff community that sit on an interview panel for the finalists. And so we did that for, and I'm going to see if I can get them all, we had Riffenberg, we had the Mountain Schools, we had Timnath, we had Weber, and Blevins. Right? Okay, so those 5, and we did it for all of those processes, and they did an outstanding job. And so that's where parents and our staff can have their voices heard and what kind of leader they want in their building for the following year. The next one we have is the calendar. If you'll recall, we brought the calendar back after the board had approved it in October, and we brought it back in January, February, because we had heard from our community that they did not like that the school year was going so close up to winter break. So we set our calendar development team back out, which has parents and staff on it as well, to consider was there anything that could be done to mitigate some of that concern, given that every 7 years, the calendar kind of rotates and the school year goes up a little closer to winter break than some of our community would like. So the Calendar Development Committee went out and they solicited input from their constituents, and they came back and they decided to move the school year back one day, if you remember that, so that we would have the Friday of the 2017-18 year would be a non-student and staff day. So it would be a closure for folks at the school who work on that calendar. Again, folks who work a 12-month calendar, that wouldn't apply to them. But for school day, it would be a non-student day. So that came back, and then we brought that back to the board in January or February, and it was approved. But that we solicited public input on that as well. And then the last one is for our Educational Technology Committee. It's a new committee, and I know that there were some questions regarding who was on that committee, and I believe you got the list of who's on that. Again, a cross-section of folks. That was an application process, so we solicited applications from the community and from staff, and we reviewed those, and there was quite a bit of interest, which was great. And I think that committee has a great representation of the different populations and the different sectors in our community. And again, we solicited the input to determine what that community should look like. So that is under the tutelage of Ms. Kim McMonigal and Mr. Robert Beauchamp. And I believe they've had their first meeting, and they will continue to meet and talk about devices and software and how are we using educational technology in our district. So that's pretty much it for public input. Do you want to stop at each, Ms. Kipp, or would you like to go through?
Let's just go ahead and do the entire presentation.
Got it?
If that's okay with the
It's
board?
pretty quick. Okay.
Thank you.
So student information, this is where it says that we're not going to collect any unnecessary information from students that isn't needlessly intrusive. This year, we looked at our student information form. We had an internal group that came together to talk about what were we collecting and how are we collecting it. And sometimes internally, our forms, we think that they're very intuitive and that everybody would understand it, but sometimes they include educational jargon. So one of the things we looked at in collaboration with, it was communications records, risk management, and information technology, we got together and realized that nobody really knew what educational rights are. It's a jargony legal term, and so we decided to talk about it as access to your child's records. And so we changed the wording on that for the student forms, and we'll be implementing that next school year. The other thing that was done was the data privacy and transparency and looking at the security. And there is quite a bit of information in there regarding how we had what I would call, what my child would call just a little oopsie. We had where some confidential student information was accidentally included in the public component of the board packet. And once that was brought to our attention, we immediately brought it down, revised the item, and put it back. But because we did have the error under the monitoring guidelines of policy governance, we do have to say that we did not meet the expectations for that one item of the student information. But what we have done is we've talked about backup plans and how we can better scrutinize the information that goes out to ensure that this type of information does not go out again in the future. Facilities usage, this is 12,924. That is the number of reservations that our customer support center took for use of our facilities between January 1 and June 30th. And this is the one that projects out how many people are going to use it. And it's outside the time of school. So I put the clocks up there so you could see it's between 7:30 and 3:30. Anything between 7:30 a.m. and 3:30 p.m. during the school year is not considered an outside usage because the buildings are using them, the schools are using them. So these are folks who are using it outside of those hours. These are churches, these are vendors who are providing enrichment for our kids. These could be soccer clubs. It could be any number of things like that. So 12,924 is what we had, and that's about keeping with what we've had in the last year. And those are the highlights.
Board members, questions? Nate?
I'm not sure about a question, just a few comments.
Sure.
As far as the curriculum goes, we did adopt in the consent agenda instructional materials for pre-calculus, college algebra, college trigonometry, and analytic geometry, high school physics and physics 1-2 AP. And with respect to the calendar, I viewed it as more of a date issue. I'm not sure about when the school year ends as compared to winter break. I thought the issue was having school end on or before December 22nd. And I know that's kind of touchy, but I think the issue was if you go until Friday the 23rd, people get mad because that pushes into travel plans. So
I think we're talking about the same thing.
Yeah.
So the Friday was the day that our community was not happy with, and so I don't believe that the calendar committee came back with a date certain, but they did move it back one day, which would be, I believe it's December 21st next year. But as Brett Larson said, he thinks the sweet spot is December 20th. So I don't believe that the board set a date certain in the future, but it's definitely something that we can have as a lively discussion when we bring the calendar back again for 18-19.
Sure. Well, I just remember the lively discussion about whether it makes sense to have school on December 23rd. And whatever day of the week that falls, I think the sentiment, and who knows what the board will do in 7 years,
Right.
is have it before the 23rd.
Okay.
So, and in student information systems, we can always try to do better in the future. So thanks for providing that we're putting systems into place to do that. So
No
thanks.
problem.
And just to clarify, I do believe that it was stated in the board packet that it was unlikely that, given the information that did go out, that a student could actually be identified. It would be very unlikely.
Correct.
But it was still not what we would choose to do.
Right. To be open and transparent, we felt that it was important that we acknowledge that the mistake was made, that the limitation was not met, and to let the board know what we were doing to make sure that that didn't happen in the future.
Thank you. Other comments and questions by the board? Okay, well, I do have one I'd like to make.
Yes, ma'am.
I just want to say that as a person who sort of grew up in the district as a parent, and having been intensively involved since my kids were really in kindergarten, I really appreciate that we continue to have parents and community members involved in all of these committees all the time. I think that's one of the things I look for as a board member, and that's why I ask for the composition of various groups, because I'd like to know how many staff members, because I think it's important to have staff input. I'd like to know how many community members. I'd like to know how many parents specifically serve on all of these committees, because that is how we get a broad perspective when we're looking at all of these issues. So to everybody who has served on any or all of these committees in the past, thank you, because it's really something that's important for our district to make sure that we are getting all different points of view as we take actions, because the 7 of us on our board, if we were to attempt to participate in every committee in the district, we'd all be way, way tired. We're all volunteers up here. We can't do everything. So it is really important for us to have surrogates out in the community and within our staff members who take the time to do that. So thank you, and thank you for coordinating that.
You're welcome.
Okay, thank you very much. And I believe that brings us to item 7.2, Student Advisory Group. And I believe we have Assistant Superintendent of Secondary Education, Scott Nielsen, to talk about that tonight.
Thanks, Board President Kipp, Dr. Smyser, and board members, and thanks for taking some time to have a discussion around the future of student advisory in PSD. As you saw in the board packet, I have proposed a different model. Our model historically has been a group of individuals collectively brought together to advise or be part of conversation, share ideas with the board. The proposed idea that I'd love to discuss with you this evening has us looking at a model that has multiple purposes. Creating an advisory group of students at each of the sites that would represent and do some advisory work at the site with the principal. So a teacher at each site that would facilitate the work of the advisory group, help them to understand the advisory role, doing some advisory at the building level, but also advising the board. And in the early stage, if you saw what I attached to the packet in stage 1, Rocky Mountain High School being the pilot. Building the advisory group there with a dynamic teacher who is super engaged in both having the local advisory role, but also welcoming the board to come in and do some exchange of ideas for you to have access to ask questions and to gather some input. So we'd have that kind of school model. Over time, as we do that in each of the sites and develop the advisory skills, potentially looking to pull back together a group that would come together from each of those individual groups. But that allows for us to have action groups at the sites. It allows for the actions also to be specific to each of the individual schools, and so each group might work on a little different topics that are specific to their local needs. And I think one of the things we saw, at least I will say I saw from the group that met with us this year, is they wrestled with exactly what the topics were, or maybe they were clear about the topics, but wrestled with how to go back and make it actionable at the site. So I believe this model provides an avenue for some exchange of ideas, for information gathering both from the board, also from the principal level, and will create action items and action that the individuals are able to carry out. I propose starting with Rocky so that we can work through some of the kinks at one site rather than trying to start with all the sites, and then work with the other high schools to build the teams. There are other high schools interested in getting going almost immediately, but I'd like to start small and work toward it and get a sense of what works both for you, but also what works for Craig at Rocky Mountain High School. Get some feedback from the teacher. Chris O'Grady's the teacher that has stepped in, and I think it has great possibilities both at Rocky but across the district. With that, I'd love to open it up for discussion.
Rob?
Sounds terrific. I have a couple questions. One of them is, do you anticipate, I know I heard clearly you want to start small and Rocky is the starter, that's fine. Over time, do you anticipate this going beyond the sort of 4 comprehensive high schools, or 6 when we build the other 2, to include folks like Polaris and Centennial and some of the other non-traditional high schools?
I actually, as I think about this model, if this model is successful, I also see it has possibilities beyond just the high schools. I think what would be fascinating is to have an advisory model that carries down even into the middle school. It gives students a chance to connect to their sites differently than maybe student council does, connect directly with the leader of the school, and also gives an avenue for the board, potentially district leadership, access to that group as well. So I do see it as a possibility, certainly, to go beyond the 4 comprehensive high schools.
Okay, and clearly as these things proliferate, we'll have to think about what it means for the board to interact with these folks in terms of who attends what meetings and whatever. But to the extent that we're talking about 1 to start with and a small number beyond that, do you anticipate, is your model that 1 or 2 board members will attend each meeting of this group, or the group will get stuff together, whatever that looks like, and then say, hey, board, send a couple people to come chat with us, or how do you think that looks?
The recommendation, and what I've talked loosely with Rocky about at this point, would be that the board members would attend quarterly to start with. So once every 9 weeks, that Chris would work on meeting with his group at least monthly, but if it's a club, the kids may want to meet more often than that, as they often do with club kind of activities. This gives another group a chance to be connected. And so, but them meeting once a month, board members attending quarterly. I think if you look at the proposed stage 1, one of the things I think we need to gather feedback on is how does it meet your needs as you go out 2 by 2 Does it give you what you want? Does it give you some access to the information you might have been looking for from the think tank? Does it feel like it's more pure, or is it not meeting the need? And I think those are questions we need to answer as we get into this. And that will help us decide what the next steps are. And if we end up with 2 or 3 schools prior to Christmas, then as a board, we're going to have to figure out how do we interact with those 3, and then get feedback around whether that is actually working for the purpose that you have assigned.
Carolyn?
Hi, thank you. So you're going to be modeling this like a club, so how will you recruit the kids, or how will we be recruiting the kids into the club?
So that's one of the things that intrigues me more than I think the model we had before is I think having a local group. When I met with Chris and Craig at Rocky, they instantly, because it had this local impact, we're talking about a cross-representation of students that represent the demographics, represent what they see in their site, which is different than a model. I think if we pull together students from a site, or from all the sites, and we have a meet here on board meeting nights, I think we're going to get a different group that's committed to that, as opposed to a group that's ready, willing, and able to meet as a club would meet during lunch, right after school at the sites. So the expectation is that this is a cross-representation group, a represented group, that it's not just our high flyers, that it is truly looking at a representative sample of whatever community we're talking about.
Okay, all right, so I guess then how will we do that? How will we recruit to make sure that we get
Yeah,
the
be the
cross-representation?
principal's responsibility in conjunction with the facilitator. And they may choose to do it through asking for students to apply. They may choose to go out and find the students. Chris and Craig are going to go offer this opportunity to students. They had a list of students they already were thinking about to ask if they want to be a part of this group. I think that's a piece we'll have to figure out as we work with sites to think about how do they want to figure that and pull in the right sampling of kids. That's a piece, that's one of the things I think that helps us starting small is that Rocky will help us go through that process, Carolyn.
And do you see, if we have clubs at all of the schools, do you eventually see that these kids could maybe meet a couple times a year all together as like a super group and, maybe talk about district-wide concerns? Do you see that ever happening?
Possibly as a super group and possibly as a sampling of each of the groups, yes. I definitely think there could be potential for some kind of representative group that now is representing a group from a campus that's doing their own individual work. So they're bringing their own individual work to the, as you called it, the super group. Yes, I think that's a possibility down the road.
Okay, thank you.
Nate?
I don't know if I can phrase this in the form of a question, but I think it'll be important to figure out how we frame the issues for which the administrators want input from the students, or the issues that the students want to give input on, and for the board as well. There may be different issues that the students want to give input to the administrators and the school board than the ones that we think are important, and I think that dynamic process and trying to figure out how we develop those will be important. So.
Yes, I think you're right, Nate. I think they'd be important that way. I think having done an advisory model before as a principal, the free flow of ideas from students to the up works. I mean, they'll come with their own ideas. I think it will be important at Rocky for Craig to be able to think about what is it I want to get feedback on, the same as the board pushing items they'd love to have feedback on for those meetings they're going to attend as well. And a timing also, because if you show up at the meeting with agenda items, the group may not be prepared, so a timing ahead of time so that the group has time to think about, maybe respond, and what information can they gather from their sites. Yes, I think that there will be a timing, and how do we flush that out will be important.
Well, thanks for that, and when you said that, it struck me as important that there may be issues that the students want to give us opinions and comments on, and it seemed like in the past there was some struggle with, from the board level, about what issues that we wanted to solicit input on. So I think the dynamic process will be important. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Other board members? Oh, Christoph, I'm sorry. And then Susan, did you have a question as well? Okay.
Yeah, and actually, it seems like just by letting the conversation happen, I was starting to understand better and get some of the answers. But I guess I'll frame a couple little questions. So would it be fair to say that what might end up in each of the high schools or schools, as you put it, would be different? I mean, one school might choose to do this through their student council, was coming to my mind. Another might create a particular club, or are you going to be framing something that you have in mind and we're modeling that at Rocky and then trying to cookie cutter that at each of the schools?
Well, I think we could do a cookie cutter that will still end up looking different, would be one answer to that. Rocky, when we talked about it, went away from the student council model, only because the student council model already has their mission. The mission for this group will be different. The mission in this case truly is to provide feedback to leadership, the board and the principal. My vision would be, that would be the way it would look at each site. But we'll work with each site to figure out how do we have that advisory board. I also would say in many cases, student council is not a cross-representation of the student body, and in some cases it is. So I think we'll have to learn that. I can tell you at Rocky, it will not be their student council.
And then just, I think you've been kind of touching on this, but have you actually gone into this with a set of criteria? You've indicated you will be measuring it for success, but I'm not clear. Do you know precisely what you have in mind, or some boundaries around what you would consider success? Or are you looking for the board to kind of thumbs up, thumbs down as we're going along, or?
I think there's a couple, I wouldn't say specific criteria. I think some of it is going to be, how does it feel for the board? Does it work? Gathering feedback in twos, so are you getting some of your information? I also want to know from the building level, is Craig feel like it's helpful for him to gather that information? Is he getting actionable information from students? And does he feel like it's a worthwhile investment of his time? The same way asking Chris O'Grady that same question. So the teacher, as a facilitator, is it working for him? Is it working for Craig? And also, is it meeting the needs of the board?
Okay, so success is kind of it's coming from multiple places, and I just want to make sure, so you feel pretty good, you understand what the board, have we articulated what we're looking for? And
yeah, I do, and I think that we may find out as we get going with this that the model works for the building and does not work for the board, and we have to try something different for the board. We may find out it doesn't work for the building, but it works for the board. I think, but it has a possibility for working for all those entities and being a powerful connection for students at the site.
Susan.
I agree with Christoph. The more I listen, my questions start. There are a couple of things that I just need clarification on. I guess it's the simplest way of putting it. I'm struggling with the word feedback because I just am not seeing what it is that needs to be accomplished. That's one of the things. I'm wondering, is it a project-oriented group? Is there something that they're going to, are they just talking and sharing ideas, or are they going to accomplish something? Is what they're going to accomplish specific to their school? So that when other schools join in, that's my next question, when would other schools be invited to participate as well? Will each of them, are they gathering for the benefit of the school or the benefit of the board? Because even things that they would be doing for their school would be pleasing to the board.
That's right.
So that, I'm just trying to get my mind around it. I also wondered, when you said about the selection of the students, you said that the principal and the person, the teacher who would be in charge, have students in mind and might go out and recruit them. What assurance would we have that it's literally a authentic cross-section of the student body at Rocky? There's a lot of questions. I'm sorry. I just threw a whole bunch at you, but you can take one by one if you want.
Yeah, let me try to answer them in the backwards order. I think assurances, that's a hard one, because I'm not gonna say there's we have to have 3 of this, 3 of that, right? But I do think we have a chance by asking for a cross-representation and having students that are interested and having staff members at each site that know the students. We have a better opportunity of having that than we do if what we say is we've got this group that represents all the schools, you need to go to it to represent, and really it's one facilitator from one site that doesn't really know the other students as they come on board. So because they are connected to their students, I think we have a better chance of having at least a more well-rounded group than maybe we had historically. Sue, give me your first one again.
Oh, am I on? Yeah, there we go. Let's see, you want in reverse order, or? want me to
Yeah, just give me your...
Toss you another one?
I can't remember how many you had. I just...
Well,
I
the meaning
answered-
of, oh, my first one, I don't remember how I ordered that. Feedback. The meaning of feedback, I'm just, I'm not sure what the purpose of it would be. I'm trying to picture. All the students come together, very first day, very first meeting, principal and sponsor are there, it's a cool club. How do you order your agenda? What is it? How do you begin? How do you get the kids buy-in to this? Because they have to envision, it's like when you join a board and it's a working board, you need to be given a job. And then you feel like, oh, I'm a member of the board, and then off you go. So that's what I'm trying to picture.
Yeah, what I didn't do in talking with Craig and Chris was talk about how they would set agendas. What I saw was passion for the opportunity. And what I know from doing it in the past is kids they'll have work they want to do, and they can work together to prioritize the work they want to do on site. When it comes to the feedback, as Nate was talking about, or information sharing with the board, you're going to have information you may want to solicit from that group, and that's the piece we're going to have to create timing for and kind of workflow around. How do we get the information you would like from that group about their experiences or what topics you want to get information, just like you would have potentially with the think tank. How are we sharing information back and forth? Is it questions you show up the night of and ask them to reflect on in the moment? That's probably going to be less effective than if they have time ahead of time to process and plan for how they're going to communicate with you in the times you're present.
Just one more clarification. So then, are you picturing this to be kind of project-oriented to the needs of the particular school that they're part of?
Yes. I do believe it will be action-oriented, and I believe it will be action-oriented based on the needs of the site. And so one of the things I'm excited about is that the actions the group takes, they'll be passionate about because it truly is representing their site, and they have a little more of a critical mass to carry out the actions at their site versus the way I think Think Tank worked is when they fractured back out into their sites, there wasn't very many students that went to any individual site, and it makes it harder to carry out the action. So I do believe the group will be action-oriented for sure. Yep.
David, and then Rob.
The old think tank had a statewide dimension in terms of some kids going down to the CASB meeting and things like that. I'm almost assuming, based on the structure here, that this would cease to be an organization with statewide connections, ties, activities, and so on.
I would say, at least initially, I think that's true. I think if we end up with a group that comes together from the sites down the road, once we figure that, I think it could go back to that model. But I think we need to teach how the process works and get back to a representative sample at some point in the future. But I think right now, if we focus on what we're doing here and doing it well in PSD, I think that's going to be the important piece, at least initially.
Rob.
So I think one of the challenges we had with the think tank is that we as a board were never really clear about what kinds of information that we wanted from them and when we wanted it. I mean, toward the end, there were definitely some efforts to talk about some specific things, but I think over time, that hasn't always been our forte, let me put it that way. And so I think one of the challenges, and this is, you're obviously a participant in this, but it's at least as much the responsibility of the board to figure out how and when in our agendas and activities, we're going to discuss what topics we'd like to hear from this group on. And so I think we need to make sure that fits in somewhere. It's not going to necessarily dominate or be the only topic that these folks talk about, clearly from what Scott has talked about. But I think to the extent that we want something from these folks, we need to be clear about what that is, and that means we need to make sure there's time in our agenda to agree on what that is. So,
David, and then Susan.
Yeah. Almost just following up from what I said before, there is currently a budget item for an organization with a statewide dimension. I think you're fairly soon going to have to say, here's your alternative budget to what that was. In some way, I don't know how this thing's being budgeted. But we have had money in the board budget to send kids to.
Yeah, potentially when I look at the budgetary needs of this proposal, it's going to be thinking about how do we support the facilitators at our sites? Because we've gone from one person supporting it to a potential individual at each site supporting it, and thinking about how do we support that financially, rather than the trip that they had financed in the past.
Susan, and then Sandra.
Oh, you want to go first? You haven't even had a chance. That's fine. Okay. So, related to what Rob was saying, that triggered something else, and something that I really like about the idea is that even though it's going to be probably focused on the passions of what the kids want to do within their site, when we do want to call upon students, though, for that student voice regarding whatever issue it is that we have a question about, there's our group.
Yep.
You know, and,
Exactly.
yeah, and I like that idea, and then we can call on them at a time and just say, so what do you think?
Yes.
And they are trained.
Yep.
So I like that part.
Sandra.
Susan, I was thinking along those lines too, that as you all develop your agenda for the year, particularly around your priority projects that are related to the ends that the district as a whole is working on, it's helpful to look at that year agenda and say, where on which topics are we going to want kids to talk to us? Because then the facilitator can have the whole year laid out, and the kids have time then to plan backwards of when you're going to come listen to them before your board meeting. And once we get ourselves organized, I think it'll actually be much more productive.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Nate.
And if we can avoid that portion of the board budget getting swept, we'll have money for the facilitator or other good things.
Okay. I think most people have commented. I just want to make a couple comments. First of all, I do appreciate that we're going to try and get a good cross-section of kids. I think it's really important to hear from all types of kids at schools, including those who might be struggling with school or have different types of issues, because, you know, if you just listen to the kids who are going to get straight A's in all their classes anyway, they're probably not going to understand the challenges of those who don't. So I really appreciate that you're making an effort to include more kids and get diversity there. I think that on Thursday we will be having our board retreat, and I think as we're going to be doing calendaring and coming up with what we're going to be talking about next year, that would be a really good opportunity for us at that time to talk about the types of things that we might be talking about in the next year that we might want to hear from kids on. So I think we'll be able to give you some feedback in fairly short order. And then I guess the other thing is I would really be very interested in supporting some kind of every semester or at least yearly summit for all of the kids to participate in, because, you know, honestly, when you do something like that, it's a little bit like, you know, adults who go to a conference for professional development. It's, you learn things about how things are done at other schools. You learn from other kids about their ideas and what they're doing. And I just think that kind of thing would have a lot of value for the kids in our system. So I really appreciate you taking this idea, charging ahead with us, and taking us to where we have not gone before.
Thanks,
and
thanks,
Susan
Kevin.
has one more comment.
The idea too, we've always wanted to build leadership, and And I think this would provide an opportunity for students who might not otherwise get to feel what leadership is like, that there would be a facilitator, but in a way, each one of the students in that group would be a leader and could at one time or another experience what it's like to lead a project or whatever the case may be. So I think there's that quality to it also. So it just keeps getting richer, Scott.
Thanks, Susan.
Okay. No other comments? I will move on to, thank you very much, Scott. We
Thank
appreciate
you.
your time. And we will move on to 8.0 action items. And first up, we have 8.1 real property acquisition. And we have Pete Hall, Executive Director of Operations, is it, to speak with us about property acquisition. Exciting topic tonight.
President Kipp and Dr. Smizer and directors of the board, thank you for all the efforts that put me here to talk about this topic tonight on real property acquisition. And as the board is aware, to accommodate anticipated growth within the district, land procurement is necessary for the construction of a new middle high school to serve the town of Wellington. And as the board is aware, over the last year, district staff has presented to the board various options for parcels in the Wellington area that are suitable for a school site. Based on feedback from board members, Zier Law Offices negotiated a contract to buy and sell real estate on which the board is being asked to take action tonight. The board has received in its packet a memo with background material that I am summarizing for the audience and people watching tonight. The board has also received in its packet the contract with the seller, Curtis Bridges, for the approximately 130-acre parcel located at 8543 North County Road 9 in Wellington. The parcel is on the northwest corner of the intersection of North County Road 9 and County Road 62E, as highlighted on the map provided in your packet. If approved by the board, the contract will give the district the exclusive right to purchase the property and lock in the purchase price of $5 million. The contract grants the district 2 years to perform due diligence before closing, which includes geological and environmental reports required by the state of Colorado, other anticipated reports, investigations, and coordination with local municipalities. This provides adequate time to ensure the subject site is suitable for school use. If approved by the board, the contract will also authorize earnest money of $50,000 per year to be issued to and held by the Land Title Guarantee Company until closing. The earnest money will be applied directly to the purchase price at closing. Based on this information, it is recommended that the board adopt the motion set forth at the end of the memo in its packet. Thank you.
Thank you. Board questions or comments? Christoph.
So I have no question. I'd just make a comment. I intend to support this contract. And I did want to comment that I find it to be one of these types of decisions are some of the bigger ones we make because it has impact on communities. And it is, of course, in our community, it's debatable whether we're, what our influence is on the future of these communities as far as growth or whatnot. But at the very least, taking on that responsibility and thinking of the future communities and how they will be able to access these schools, use them, see patterns of growth around the schools. I felt like of the options we considered, this was truly one of the better options we could have had. It feels like it's close to the center of Wellington. It will promote access from all sides. It's always been very important to me that we consider how students get there, whether it's safe, whether there are options for how they could get there by walking, riding bikes, avoiding trains, all those kind of things. And I feel like we considered it pretty carefully. And I, for one, intend to support this. Thank you.
Thank you. I think it was David and then Nate.
Yeah, I plan to support this as well. It's been a fascinating process for me. I've bought houses, but nothing larger, and all of the work over time and people raising all sorts of angles and concerns. It was a very slow, deliberate process. I think there were probably people in Wellington who thought, well, we'll never see that school, and we've been working on it now for several years. And but we wanted to do it right, and I think we have, and I think it's probably the best parcel of the bunch, and I tend to support it.
Nate?
I would be pleased to second a motion from my colleague Director Reed to proceed with this acquisition.
Carolyn, would you like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the purchase of the Wellington property for our new middle school, high school.
Ms. Kipp, I would
Is there
suggest that the
form?
motion at the end of the memo in the board packet be read to ensure that it's properly adopted.
Thank you very much.
Based on the foregoing? Is that the one?
I think you better read the whole thing.
You don't want me to read the whole thing, do you? Okay. Based on the foregoing, it is recommended that the following motion be read and adopted. Where it's, I don't see it here.
I move right there.
Oh, there it is, sorry. I move that the board adopt the attached contract to buy and sell real estate for a parcel of land located near the town of Wellington and authorize the board president to sign the contract attested by the board secretary.
And I would like to recognize Nate for the purpose of seconding the motion.
I second, and then once the matter is properly before us, I have some discussion as well.
Okay, well, I believe now that you've seconded, the matter is properly before us. Would you like to lead us off?
I know this is a sensitive issue, and I know the naming will happen down the road, and that we'll have a process for that. But I would point out that Byron R. Whizzer White grew up in Wellington, and I don't know if Whizzer High School is an appropriate name for a high school, but I look forward to the naming process.
Well, thanks for tossing out the first ball on that one. We appreciate it. Any other board comments, questions? Okay, are we ready for the roll call? Okay, Carla.
Yes.
Krista?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
I would just like to say that I'm excited to see us finally have the land to build our new high school and middle school in the community of Wellington. I know the community there has long wanted that, and it's at an appropriate time with a lot of growth going on there that I think we're ready to move. And so at the conclusion of the litigation, which has been ongoing about our bonds, we look forward to being able to break ground and building these new high schools for those communities. So thank you so much for all of your efforts and helping us get there. And thank you to our voters for helping to get us there as well. We hope to be able to put your money to good use very soon. Thank you. Okay. Let us continue on to 8.2, participation in the State Treasurer's interest-free loan program. We have Executive Director of Finance, Dave Montoya, here to talk about that with us tonight.
Yes, thank you. So tonight I am talking to you about the interest-free loan program. So I want to give a little bit of background on this. I also want to talk about why we're participating in this program this year, and also why I believe we'll be participating moving forward, given how the state's budget's laying out into the future forecast. So the purpose of this program is, it's been around for quite a while. You can see here from the slide, it was brought about back in 1992, 93. And the idea is that revenues that districts receive have timing differences. So as you think about your property taxes and when you pay those at home, those are not being collected and remitted to the school district until later in the fiscal year, really toward the tail end of the fiscal year. And money that we do get from the state comes in monthly, but that really creates a timing difference because that property tax comes in so late in the year, and our expenditures are not in line with that revenue source. Our expenditures come out equal amounts pretty much from month to month. So the idea behind this is that the state put together this program so that districts could manage those cash flow deficits that occur in the first part of the year until the property taxes come in later, and this program is offered to school districts interest-free. There was a question from the board as to how much is the state paying for this program. And once you factor in the premiums and everything else from I was looking at last year's issue. They haven't done this year's issue yet, but it was about 0.6% is what the state's paying on interest for this. So we thank the state for doing that. The state does understand that this is critical to districts and has been critical to many districts, and now will be important to ours going forward. So just a little background on the program and how it works. One of the first things that the district must do is complete a comprehensive cash flow to participate in the program. That is attached in your packet as, I believe it's Appendix B or Exhibit B or something like that in the resolution. Just information, this is run by the State Treasurer's Office, so it's a program the state has brought about. And it is also managed by RBC Capital Markets, of which is also our bond underwriters, so you may recognize that name. Loans are dispersed starting in the fall when deficits occur, so that's that flow of revenue coming in, not being able to meet the expenditures until the property tax comes in. And then these loans are repaid once those property taxes come in. Majority of that is in March, May, some in June too. So we've got some graphs that I think really illustrate these topics a little better, so I'll focus more on those because I'm more of a visual person. Some facts about the program, just for those that may be interested. Participation can change from year to year given what happens with assessed valuation. And so you can see anywhere from 20 to 30 districts, depending on the year, that may be participating in this. I suspect that we'll see even more as time goes on, and you'll see why in a minute. Typically, the total amount borrowed from the program is anywhere from $400 to $500 million annually. And what we are projecting in the resolution is that we will use $20 million, but we are asking the board to authorize up to $30 million. I've had a lot of discussion with the people that manage the program, and they do like to have that flexibility in there because sometimes cash flows don't exactly come out the way you project them. The other things that we have here are, again, the loans are typically repaid in May. This is the important part here, is the higher the percentage of the district's property tax collection as a total of its revenue, the more likely it will be to participate in the interest-free loan program. And so right here, I put in the slide that you can see that percentage is changing over time. And, even if I were to go back further in time, I remember a point where we were 40-60, meaning 40% property tax, 60% state. That is shifting on us, and it's shifting pretty rapidly, and that's why we are participating in this. I think this graphic does a lot better than the last slide. What this is the blue bars represent property tax, and then the salmon colored or orange or whatever that shows up on looks like orange, is the total revenue. And so what you're looking for here is kind of that dot, the solid line that shows the percentage off to the right. And so kind of showing what was on that last slide, we have moved from being about 43% in the years that I'm displaying here, or 40%, maybe 42, somewhere in there. And now we're closer to 46% being property tax. So this is really what's the change is and why we're talking about this tonight. This detail that I just showed you comes from our budget and CAFR documents. So that's where that data comes from. The cash flow estimates, again, I alluded to that was one of the first pieces that the district has to do to participate in the program. And this is exactly what's going on here. As you can see, the revenue portrayed by the blue line, which is under the expense line. So you can see our expenses are very consistent from month to month. We have a little bit of spike in the beginning of the year, we have a little bit of spike toward the end of the year, but for the most part, those expenses are very consistent from month to month. But our revenue stream is not. So you can see that our revenue stream and what's displayed by that blue line up until February is really mostly state equalization, where the state is providing their share of funding, and they basically divide that up by 12 and give it to us monthly. So you can see that revenue is not anywhere sufficient to meet our cash obligations for expenditures. So we have payroll going out every month, and that's our biggest driver. You can see that in that cash flow summary that's attached. But what's happening is the blue line at the beginning from July to February is, if I were to be able to draw this over time, you'll see that line slowly declining or dropping, and the peaks are getting larger because we're shifting more to property tax, means that we don't get that money until later. So I think this graph does a lot of justice at describing the dynamic and why we're talking about this tonight, and I think it's very useful. This last graphic, again, is pulled right out of that cash flow summary that's provided to the state treasurer. And this graphic was one I was trying to get at this a couple different ways. But this one really just shows the difference between what our cash flow would be if we did not participate in the loan program, which is displayed by the blue bars. And obviously what we do not want to happen is the negative that occurs. So you can see that the December looks like it's dropping below the zero baseline. That's a deficit, and that's where we would first start drawing on the loan program. And then the orange bars represent our cash flow as we participate in the loan program, as detailed in that cash flow summary. So these last two slides are just visual representations of what's in that cash flow summary. So I hope that's helpful, and maybe there may be some questions around that. Timeline, we have a very tight timeline on this one, just as it kind of reminds me of our mill levy certification in December. Basically, RBC Capital Markets distributes the program information May 26th. You'll notice that is after our last board meeting. From that time, we've put together a board packet. The information would go back to RBC, of which we've already provided them the cash flow estimates. And then what we're really waiting for tonight is board approval to move forward. The RBC will take that board approval along with the other districts that are participating in this and go out to market and issue the bonds for this program so that they can fund it. That is about it. It's pretty straightforward, I hope, but I know there will be some questions.
Nate.
To get this properly before us, I move that the board approve the resolution presented in the June 13th, 2017 meeting packet, authorizing the participation by the district in the state treasurer's interest-free loan program for Colorado school districts and borrowing under such program in an aggregate principal amount of up to $30 million. Is that the correct number?
That is the correct number.
Semicolon, establishing the terms and provisions of loans to the district pursuant to such program, providing for the repayment, providing for the payment of and security for such loans, and authorizing the execution, delivery, and acceptance of documents in connection with the loans. And then I had a question after we get it on the floor.
Okay, may I have a second to that motion? Carolyn. Okay, and so then Nate has a question, then Rob has.
If we can go to the slide, the first bar graph slide.
This one here?
Yes.
Yes.
I think I understand it now. I just wanted to confirm with you. Is the left column of millions of dollars correspond to the blue and orange bars?
Yeah,
And then does the one on the right only correspond to the blue bars and the gray line?
So the dollar amounts on the left
Yep.
are displaying both bars, so the blue
Okay.
and the orange bar.
Okay.
The line that you're seeing in the middle of the graph is displayed by the scale on the right of the graph that shows the percentage of property tax to total revenue.
Okay, so the percentages on the right have no relationship to the blue bar?
They are a calculation of the percentage of the blue bar compared to the orange bar.
Okay.
So the line is calculated by taking the blue bar divided by the orange bar.
Yep, got it. Thank you.
Rob?
Could you go to the other bar slide? Yeah, that one.
This one here?
So, this may seem obvious, but I just wanted to understand it. The July numbers, for example, our ability to pay the July costs, whatever they are,
Correct.
is dependent on the property taxes from the previous school year, right? I mean, I understand this is, yeah, so if you go back to the other chart, there are those spikes, that one.
Yes.
There are those spikes in, what is that?
Property tax.
March and June, right?
Right.
So that, despite the fact they're coming in the previous school year, they're paying for the initial costs in the next school year, if you will.
No, I don't believe so.
No?
What they are doing is they are replenishing the expenditures that have already happened with revenue.
So where do we get the money from to pay the July?
So for the July, so going back to this bar
Yes.
graph, where does this come from?
Where does the
We do
July
have
and
fund
August
balance
money?
within the district. We also, the board did approve of, which is required for the interest-free loan program, that we borrow from certain funds to use cash flow. So it's a total look at the district as required by the program. But what we're using is all of the cash balances we have on hand.
Okay.
To meet those obligations. And in the past, Director Pedersen, what had been true before we started seeing this major shift in the property
Right.
tax is that our fund balance and funds from other funds were sufficient to be able to get us through those cash flow shortfalls. What we're seeing now is that we're getting too close to that, and our cash flow projections do not show that we would be able to do that
Okay,
this year.
so the spikes from the previous graph pay back all the funds that we borrow, inter-school funds that we borrowed from during the school year.
Exactly.
And then we start off again.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And now what this graph will also indicate is when those spikes happen, is we will be paying back the interest-free loan
Yeah,
program
that's
also.
in this going forward thing. but-
And if you look at the resolution, it actually says that has to happen within a day of receiving those property taxes. So we're under an obligation to provide those property taxes to the interest-free loan program to meet those obligations as soon as possible.
Great, no, I understand that on a going forward basis. I was just wondering how we accomplished it previously, given given the size of those bars and whatnot.
Right.
So, thank you.
The other piece I would add to this, it adds, maybe getting into the weeds a little bit, but the interest-free loan program requires us to set certain cash balances aside, like Tabor and things like that, whereas in the past, before we were participating, we would use that Tabor reserve knowing that we would be able to fill it back up with property taxes when we received them. So the loan program itself has some stipulations that are nuanced, but they make sense.
Other board members? Nate?
So I don't know if you addressed it, I don't remember. Does the money become available to the program mid-July after the note sale, so is that the case?
So the actual money becomes available as it's needed, and this was something as we learn more about the program, it surprised me. They actually make disbursements 3 times a month.
Okay.
To meet cash flow shortfalls. The idea behind that is, and I don't understand the entire structure at the state level, so just give me a little latitude there. But as it was explained to me from RBC Capital, they do that in order to keep the interest costs low. So they're issuing these bonds at different times, and then they're repaying them back. So these are very short-term borrowings.
Okay.
And that's why they do that, is because if they can disperse it on an as-needed basis, almost just in time, then they can keep the cost of the program lower.
Okay, so then are you saying, going to that bar graph about cash balance by month, would we not necessarily ask for money until December?
Yeah, I believe that's correct. We wouldn't ask for money until we started coming into a point where we're going to start hitting those deficits.
Got it,
And then
okay.
we'd be asking for them on a timely basis.
Okay.
So one of the things that we've done for many years, and we're doing to the nth degree this year, is we're really following this cash flow. And we've really nailed down the cash flow projections to make sure we've got them as good as we can. The interest-free loan program also, to just add a little bit more comfort, you saw a piece of the spreadsheet that shows our cash flow. When the program gets up and running, we're actually monitoring that with the program administrators on a monthly, probably even on a 3 times a month, maybe sometimes, basis. So we're actually tracking what actual results are happening compared to what we had forecast. Because what we have seen in districts that participate in the past is sometimes cash flow doesn't come out exactly as you project, so you may need more money at different times. So the idea is that they hope that districts that may need more, there may be districts that need less. So, but they structure that all at the state level.
Okay, and so it looks like from the graph that we anticipate needing like maybe $25 million total?
The cash flow analysis in your packet shows 20.
20.
Just over 20.
20
yes.
total.
But the resolution that you're hopefully going to approve tonight is for 30, of which gives us that cushion.
Right.
Again, allowed by the program. It's very transparent in the back of the resolution. The program people know what that looks like.
Sure. Thank you.
And when you consider that amount in the total cost of our annual budget, it's really quite a small amount.
Right, and I think for those that really kind of maybe can put the pieces together, if you think about 20 million minus Tabor, minus the change in property tax, we're pretty close to being able to make cash flow. We have been for years, but this change in property tax is something we just can't avoid any longer. And I suspect as we see this happen more and more, where the state share drops and they're putting more reliance on property taxes, we're seeing this time and time again from the budget cycles, that's just going to put more districts into this program.
Other board member questions? Well, I'm going to take this opportunity to have you answer a question for our wide-ranging television audience and the folks in the room that I get asked all the time, and I answer, but I think you can give a very concise answer for people because it's sort of skirting around this whole topic. So in Larimer County, in many of the communities, areas in which we live, our property taxes are going up, right?
Correct.
Because the valuation on our properties is higher. Why isn't the school district getting a whole lot more money? Because there's all this more money going into the system.
Mm-hmm.
And I think you can explain that for people quite well.
Let me take a stab at that, Director Kipp. The whole idea behind, let me put my thoughts in a row here. Can you repeat the question? Now give me time to just get my thoughts in order. Sorry, I drifted.
Well, and I know part of the answer is because
the Gallagher, okay, sorry, I needed to go back.
Well, right, but so we have our state share of,
Correct.
we have two parts of our property tax, right?
That's right. We have state share, of which is, I'm going to go back to the graph here, of which is that flat blue line, or that blue line that's kind of just bouncing around there. And then the property taxes are coming on top of that.
Right,
there.
so we have,
So
but the
those two
state
shares,
share is
right.
about is a little bit over half, right? The stuff that the state says every pupil should
Correct.
get. And then the other part is the money that we
From
have
the-
between mill levy overrides and bonds in our district, so.
Correct.
Maybe use that as a starting point.
Yes, so what happened? Sorry, I just got sidetracked as you
Well,
were.
and Mr. Montoya, I think one of the things that I hear frequently as well from community members is when they get their tax rolls and they are paying more tax, they're assuming that we are getting more money.
Correct.
That we're
Correct,
netting all
yes.
that money. And
Yes.
that's the basis of the question is, I'm paying more, why aren't you getting more?
Yeah, and so I don't know that that's, I'm pausing because I'm trying to think about how that's going to play out on property tax bills this year. I'm thinking of my own. So my assessed valuation went up by 17%. It would have gone up much larger than that if they had not reduced the assessed valuation, how they calculate that on the residential. And we talked a lot about that rate changing from the 7.65 or 95 down to 7.22 now. That's one of the things, but I think it plays out differently for every taxpayer and depending on what your assessed valuation is doing, because there could be people where their assessed valuation does not increase for whatever reason when they calculate that. It may be that their property taxes actually drop because the assessment rate has dropped against residential. I know for homes like mine, and probably for many of our viewers out there, we did see an increase in assessed valuation that was provided. That assessed valuation in all likelihood, would generate much more property tax if the assessment rate hadn't changed.
So let me ask you this question. So if we get in Poudre School District about $7,100 per student, correct?
Right.
Do we get more than that if we get more taxes?
Yeah,
If
so-
we're
so,
getting more
okay, okay.
property taxes?
Sorry.
That's the question.
I
The
see what you're
state
asking
is
the question.
leveling out what everybody gets, and that's the
So-
picture people don't understand.
So, yes, thank you. I was completely misunderstanding your question. The amount outside of mill levy overrides, the amount that we get per pupil is determined by state statute. And this is where you were going, President Kipp, is there's a combination of local share, which is property taxes, and state equalization in there. What's happening is, yes, people are paying more property tax, so like even that last assessment cycle that I just talked about that's causing our situation, yes, they are paying more, but the state is reducing their share by, in the last assessment cycle, almost an equal amount. So the net that the school district is getting is no different, but more of it's coming from property taxes as opposed to state. I hope that
So the
addressed your
short way
question
of
better.
saying that maybe is that we don't get any more money. We're just paying a bigger share of it, and the state has to kick in less because our property taxes are
That's-
covering more of it.
That's absolutely correct.
Okay.
And that's, and when we're talking about the interest-free loan program tonight, that's the dynamic that, why I opened up saying, I believe we're going to be in this going forward, because I do not see that type of situation at the state changing. I see that as assessed valuation continues to grow, the state's budget is still under immense pressure, and they're going to be inclined to reduce the state share as much as they can to balance the budget. So I truly believe that this is the new normal for us and many other districts soon to come.
Well, thank you. And I just think it's really important for people to understand that just because there's a perception that all this money's out there, that we don't get more money.
That's correct. The amount of money that we get is really derived from the state formula, driven by the legislature, and the approval of overrides if and when our voters approve those.
Thank you. And Rob and Nate.
Yeah, and as it relates to the overrides, the amount of money that we get from those is determined by what's in the ballot language, right? So
That's correct.
if the property tax assessment rates or whatever go up, then the mill levy rate that we have to charge goes down in order to get the same amount of money.
That's correct.
So we don't get any more
That's
money out of
correct.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Nate.
My question is not necessarily on the mill levy overrides, or maybe it's both. The base property tax, my question is whether each local government has to adjust their property tax rate in reaction to differences in valuation and differences in whatever the rate is under Gallagher.
That is probably a very complicated question to answer on the fly up here. I suspect there's a little bit of both, because ballot questions can be written different ways. I believe that when we talk about like fire department, things like that, I believe they do have to adjust. I believe library districts have to adjust. I don't work in their budget, so I don't know that for a fact. But there could potentially be mill levy overrides out there. I know some school districts have passed overrides that don't focus on a dollar amount, but they focus on a mill levy rate. So in that case, those ones would grow over time. So it just depends on how those questions maybe are written. But some taxing entities that may apply. I don't know all the taxing entities and all their budgets, so I don't know how they all work, but
Sure.
I'm just
Well-
thinking of some big ones.
Well, as it relates to school districts, I can see if the ballot question calls for an amount of money, you have to make that adjustment. But what about our base property tax levy
Yeah, so our
rate?
our property tax levy rate, in the past, before the mill levy freeze, and I can't remember what year that was brought forward by the legislature and then challenged and upheld in the Supreme Court. But prior to the mill levy freeze, yes, we would have to adjust our mill levy down to compensate for assessed valuation going up. The way current state law is written in the total program funding formula is that the rate for our base property tax is set in statute at a specific dollar or specific rate. That's 27 mils for us. So, yes, that was enacted by the legislature to allow that rate to grow or the collection to grow, and it was challenged and taken all the way to the Supreme Court and finally upheld by the Supreme Court that it was lawful.
Okay, thanks for reminding us about the levy freeze, so, yep, thanks.
Okay, well, thanks for allowing us to take those rabbit trails at the end there. We appreciate it. Does anybody else have any more questions on this topic before we vote? Okay, let's call the question. Or let's go ahead and take the roll.
I think calling the question is done when there's no more when you want to cut off discussion. I think discussion long petered out. Yes.
Aye.
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 Awesome. Thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody. Next up, we have Dr. Smyser.
If I could just make one comment, because this is a new process for us, I'm sure that Mr. Montoya will include, when he does budget updates, he'll keep you informed as to what's happening in this program and whether we're taking any money or not, and it'll just become part of the information you receive regularly.
Let me pass these down. Thank you. That brings us to 8.3, legislative agenda. So the legislative committee met again today at 4 p.m., even though the state legislature is no longer meeting, but we were doing so in order to work on establishing our legislative agenda for the coming school year, essentially. What we did is there were a few minor adjustments to what was in the packet. You will find under item 2, the rationale, there's some parentheses that are new. PSD has conducted negotiations in public for many years. And then at the very end of the second page, given the proposals now circulating Washington, D.C. around education policy and associated budgets, the PSD Board of Education will weigh in on other federal matters as circumstances dictate. So those are really the only changes from what showed up in your packet. So what we're looking for tonight is just approval of this, and what we would like to do with it is, again, start off with this as our initial advocacy agenda for the coming school year. And in addition, we would like to forward all of the items on the legislative agenda to the Colorado Association of School Boards for inclusion at their delegate assembly as resolutions. Nate?
So we can consider this, I would move adoption of the Poudre School District's Board of Education 2018 State Advocacy Agenda and the Poudre School District's Board of Education, or is that Poudre School District Board of Education's 2018 Federal Advocacy Agenda?
Thank you. May I have a second? Susan? Okay. Would anybody like to discuss the items on here? Rob?
I'll just say for the benefit of the audience that you can certainly find this on most of this in the packet. One of the things that is a dynamic piece of our work going forward is at the federal level, given the proposals now circulating in Washington, D.C. around education policy and associated budgets, the Board of Education expects that we'll probably have to weigh in on more federal matters than are listed explicitly in here as circumstances dictate. There are certainly some proposals going around that would have a significant impact on our ability to deliver services to our students, and we'll respond to those appropriately as they arise, and we'll certainly make them known to the public as well. But I just wanted to make clear that more so than in perhaps previous years, this, particularly the federal advocacy agenda, may be somewhat dynamic.
And just to tell folks too, really the only thing that has changed, we've moved things around and adjusted some wording, particularly in the financial section. But this is pretty much the same agenda we had for most of last year, with the exception that we had one item that happened that the state legislature essentially approved, and so we were able to drop one item off of our advocacy agenda, which was getting the park testing out of the high school levels in 9th grade, so that now there's just the PSATs and the SATs in the high school. So that's what this is. Okay, any other thoughts, comments? Nate?
I would just say that the primary focus for our state legislative advocacy agenda is the level of state funding that is available and will be available in the future for K-12 education. And we know the state budget is in a vice generally, but as it applies to education, we're facing very dire future budgets if we don't address some of the serious structural issues with the way all public services in Colorado are funded. And I know sometimes it gets old and it sounds like a broken record, but we really need to figure out how to fix some of the structural imbalances and problems with the way public finance is done in Colorado. So, thanks.
Thank you. Other comments, questions? Okay, can we call the roll?
Yes.
Christoph?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. That brings us to item 8.4, the proposed budget for this 2017-2018 fiscal year.
Oh, Carolyn's got it.
And I believe
Susan's got it.
Dave has a statement to read. We ended up pulling this from the consent agenda tonight, so there's not really a formal presentation due to the objections of a community member. So we wish to address those.
Yes, thank you, President Kipp. Tonight, we were asking that the board,
Point of order, yeah.
Okay,
From
sorry.
an ordering perspective, we had indicated that at least one community member might want to address this.
Yes.
Do we want to let that person go first?
No, David's going to make a statement, then we will let anybody who wishes
Okay.
to address this go. Nate?
Do we want to get this on the floor so that it's properly before us? I mean, a motion in a second?
Okay, Susan, would you like to make a motion?
I just thought Dave was going to introduce it before the motion's read, and then it could be discussed and addressed by members of the
Is that
audience.
acceptable? Okay, go for it, Dave.
thank you. Okay, so tonight, we're asking the board to adopt the budget. We've been talking about the budget at length for the last 6 months, probably more. I think we've been hitting every board meeting. So tonight, we're asking the board to adopt the budget. The board has received objections to the budget being submitted for adoption tonight from Mr. Eric Sutherland. After the board has considered the objections, it may do one of two things. One, change the proposed budget, or approve it as presented. So with that, that was the introduction. And I would also like to maybe address the objections that were put forward, and then we can allow for some comments. So I'm just going to read directly from the email that we received, that the Board of Education received from Mr. Sutherland, and I'm going to read the issues that he has. I'm coining those as issues. It was previously disclosed that there was a difference in the budgeted funded pupil count and that the actual in the 2016-17 budget year, yet page 5 of the adopted budget shows no variance. That is interesting. So that's pretty easy to explain. As the board may recall, we adopt a budget like we're doing tonight. We also have the legal ability to revise that budget for any reason up until January 31st of any fiscal year, and we did so this last January to reflect the change in October count. So yes, there would be no variance displayed in that because the budget was revised in January to reflect the actual October count. Where the next issue that is highlighted here, where is the investment revenue from the massive balance in the bond redemption fund accounted for? So to answer that specific question, all property taxes and investment earnings are accounted for in the bond redemption fund. All district earnings, including those for the segregated bond redemption fund, are submitted to the board along along with the quarterly financials. So when you look at your quarterly financials, you actually get a breakdown of those investments, and it's in the back of those quarterly financials. And if you look, the bond redemption fund is the last line item on there. Segregated funds, we do not commingle those funds at all. They are for the specific purpose of paying principal and interest, so we retain them in a separate account to do that. I'm going to take the next two because my answer is going to be the same on both of these. Again, reading directly from the issues presented from Mr. Sutherland. Once again, it appears the bond redemption levy will be backed out from constant mill levy pseudo policy. This is contrary to applicable law and will result in refunds and penalties. If it is done, adopted budget is prima facie evidence. The next comment from Mr. Sutherland. What if tax from the 2016 election is challenged? So I'm going to address both of those questions or issues with a very single statement of this will be decided after the litigation is finalized and when debt is issued. So that's where we're at with those issues that were brought forward.
Thank you very much. Mr. Sutherland, would you like to do community comment on this item, or would anybody else in the room? Okay, you have up to 3 minutes.
Eric Sutherland, a citizen of Fort Collins here. Just backing up just a little bit, answer your question, Nate. There are no other taxing entities in this area that adjust their mill levies based on assessed valuations that have come forward. To find those, you have to find districts that haven't debruced. There are still a few in the state of Colorado, but if you're not debruced, then you have to do it. But you won't find, what you will not find, is a public entity that adopts a budget without a public hearing. I've never seen one, okay? So maybe make a note of that. I think there were 2 other items on your agenda this evening that I did not find in the board packet when I looked through it. I mean, part of the idea of informed consent is that elected decision makers make decisions once the public has been informed, the public will be impacted. It's kind of a basic tenet of democracy. It'd be nice to see that found here. Ms. Kipp, if you were to look at the motion for summary judgment in 2016 CV 031129, you would see that attorneys that are making hay off of the Poudre School District taxpayers have claimed that you can already sell bonds right now. Already. That if nobody appealed that in rem procedure that was filed, there would be no obstacle and the case against me would be moot. That's what your attorney said. So why aren't you selling bonds right now? I think it's because what I said at the very beginning. I could disappear off the face of planet Earth and it would make no difference. You guys are being led around with a ring in your nose by some crafty attorneys who know how to make hay. Period. That in rem procedure suffered a fatal technical flaw before the first notice was published in the Coloradoan, which makes it completely useless in terms of any additional protections or assurances or guarantees that it might provide investors. Did due diligence trying to point that out, was ignored. In the ensuing time since that case was settled till now, you could have gone through the correct procedure and corrected for that deficiency. You haven't started yet. This is really messed up. The only thing I can say is if I was as bad at doing my job as the 7 of you are, I would quit. I would quit and find somebody else to do it. Not listening to people who are putting their best effort into what they think is good for the community and having this type of result really kind of requires that kind of outcome, guys.
Okay, so I think we're ready for a motion and second, and then we can have some discussion on this item.
I have the motion.
Susan.
I move the Board of Education adopt the fiscal year 2018 budget and appropriation resolution as presented in the June 13th, 2017 agenda packet.
May we have a second? Rob? And I guess first off, I'd like to give Dave Montoya an opportunity to respond if there was anything that you'd like to state or say.
I don't know that I have any response on the agenda topic. The community comment really didn't address the budget topic.
Okay, thank you. Rob?
I would like to ask what kind of public input has, I know we heard a little bit of that from Executive Director Clark, but I think I would like to hear again how the public has been involved in learning about this budget and has had the opportunity to give input. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. So our budget process allows for community input in various different forums. One is, and I'm going to just reiterate what Executive Director Clark had said earlier. We have the DAC, of which is a committee within the District Accountability Committee. We do budget work with them. They're actually required to do some budget work and submit a budget recommendation, of which the board did receive earlier in the spring. We also present to the DAB, that's a larger stakeholder group of parents and staff, mostly parents. And so we talk about budget there. We also have a budget advisory committee, of which has 3 community members on it that have been serving for a number of years now on the budget advisory committee. So we get input from them. We get input from the negotiations group, although that may not be community, but it is broader input. We also talked numerous times with different stakeholders about, in conjunction with the long-range plan budget and what the budget horizon looks like. I think about the chamber and some other groups that we've talked to. There's probably a lot of other input that, and I just don't want to be remiss about that we've been talking about budget publicly here at the board meetings. If you go back through the agendas, I think we were on pretty much talking about it every agenda, maybe missed 1 or 2 in between January from now, but we've been talking about it monthly in a very public setting. I would also say that we were very clear, and I know Mr. Sutherland follows the board meetings on a regular basis. We're very clear that we had provided a proposed budget at the last board meeting and that we would be adopting it tonight. So I actually have been talking about that timeline since January.
Thank you. I guess I'd like to add that we have also had we have representatives from some of our employee groups here tonight, and that our internal stakeholders also have an opportunity to weigh in on the budget process as we go through it. So, any other comments or questions on this? Okay. Well, with that, let's go ahead and call the roll. Thank you.
Nate?
Yes.
Krista?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Kathy?
Aye.
Rob?
Aye.
Carolyn?
Aye.
David?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you, board. I appreciate the work you do.
Thank you, Dave. We appreciate the work
Absolutely.
you do.
We appreciate what you've done. Thank you so much.
Okay, that brings us to 9.0, agenda planning. Does anybody have any agenda topics they would like us to consider this evening? Okay, well, we will be having a retreat in 2 days, and I'm sure we will have more discussion on this topic at that time. If there is nothing else. Do we need a second for that? Okay. Okay, I think everybody is in agreement that it is time to adjourn. It's 9:08 p.m. That at 10.0 adjournment, 9:08 p.m. on June 13th. Thank you, everybody, for joining us this evening.